What up, folks? Daniel, welcome to the show. I used to go really high with my intro, but I have had to turn the gain up because my chair is squeaky and I need to get a new one. So I kept it a little low. But dude, welcome to the show. As you know, I'm going to tell you a little behind the scenes right now, people. I got Daniel a little freaked out because I was a little late. This is all on me. This is all on me that we're late. At a work meeting popped up, but you're here and you're smiling and we're ready to go. How you doing, brother?
Hey, Mike. I could not be better. Behind the scenes as well. This has been probably one of the shortest nights recently because I'm in Japan right now. So it's about 6:30 or 6:44 in the morning, and we are one day away from launching a big thing. So we stayed up until 2:30 last night. So this was a nice and short night, but I'm ready. I'm pumped. Let's rock and roll.
You know, I wish you would have, because I'm here all about flexibility and helping the founders out, man. You totally could have hit me up and we could have pushed this back, but that means a lot about you, the fact that you're still here. And I'm glad that you brought that up, actually, because I want this to be just a time to reflect on what you just did, right? And we're going to have a really nice conversation to allow you to just hopefully you can take a couple of deep breaths. This might be a little meditative situation because you need that and you're still ripping and tearing and it's about to happen. So thank you for doing that. Thank you for being here. We already have people watching. I'm super excited. This is going to be great. But real quick about me, I actually took a little bit of a break, had some birthdays in the family, took a couple days off. It was brilliant. It was amazing. I get to spend time with my family. We have strategy work going on. We have Reply Corp coming on tomorrow. We have... who else do we have? On-Chain founder coming on in a couple weeks. We have some gaming guys coming on in a couple weeks too. So the podcast is going to keep going. One of the other things that has changed about me, follow me on LinkedIn. It makes my content, and as you go through this, Daniel, you're going to see my content probably makes a lot more sense for LinkedIn. I was struggling a while because I have a professional career. And I have these side hustles, and I'm like, I want to keep them separate. But I'm at that day and age of side hustles and AI and things about to change fundamentally in the next couple of years. I want to make sure I'm getting exposure and putting myself out there and maximizing my opportunities, because I think the businesses I've built here will open up many other doors too. So why am I holding myself back on that? Any thoughts about that? Because that's an interesting topic.
So about LinkedIn specifically,
knowing that me, like somebody like me that has kind of a corporate job, but then I have my podcast and I have my crypto being, right? And do you mix the two? And I just said, screw it. I pulled the trigger. I made myself, the founder of my podcast company, put it on my professional LinkedIn. And I said, what's the worst that can happen?
Oh man, I think you have to. There's no way around it. You got to burn all bridges in that sense. If you're not willing to die on that ship, then 100%. Just philosophically, the energy you put out on it might not be the right one. So I think
100%.
Yeah. What's the worst that can happen as well? People on LinkedIn being snobby because they understand crypto. Yeah, that's on them, man. Yeah, absolutely. Share the love, share the word everywhere. I should do much more on LinkedIn. X is so overwhelming to begin with, but I guess.
And this is where, so this is another thing that I'm excited about leveling up for you. Imagine somebody like me that's deep into crypto, but they're also going to be like, Daniel, I can introduce you to the right people in the professional network too, because as this evolves, right? So having not many crypto influencers, there's a more KOL, whatever you want to call them, content creators like myself, have a huge presence on more of a professional network as well too. So bridging those gaps is actually going to help provide more value to you as a founder as well. So I'm super excited, ramping up that content, making sure I get a couple pieces of content out of the day. And the conversations, the things that we'll talk about today are actually really relevant for those types of audiences, because they're all about leveling up and figuring out how to overcome adversity and stuff, which is the majority of what we're going to talk about today. So really excited about that. Enough about me. The rest is about Daniel, I promise you. And this dude, he's already had an insane journey, right? Worked for the European Central Bank. Worked in, when you were a PM, like as in project management, or what do you mean by senior PM?
So I was a senior PM at Swissborg right after for the Central European Bank. That was right at the beginning of. It's actually how my journey kind of started. I mean, I had to start went to zero.
Sounds like you're going underwater.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think it's
Can you
when
hear
you
me
lean
better?
back. I think it's when you lean back a little bit.
It is right now the sound okay?
You're good. You're good now. I don't know what happened.
Okay, let's try again. I was a senior product manager at Swissborg. Before that, that was a European Central Bank. But that was kind of kickstarted my crypto journey somewhat. I had bought some stuff that went to zero right before the European Central Bank. But I don't know if you remember back in 2017, 18, that was the first time that CBDC, so central bank digital currencies, were becoming a topic. The Fed will think about the digital dollar. It kind of was freaking me out. I feel like it's a huge potential risk for basic human rights, such as privacy and freedom. And out of that kind of sparked something in me, and I started to create a project for them on how to create a digital euro in this case, because we're in Europe, that would still preserve all those basic human rights. And it failed miserably because it was simply not a aligned with what they were doing, obviously, and I clearly was too naive to understand that at the time. So that was a fun period of my life. But so the product management was at Swissborg right after, which was the story.
And so that I really asked them more so PM means a couple things. When I hear PM, it's either project manager or product manager. So you really were from the product side, trying to figure out the strategy behind the new products that could come out in this world, which is fantastic. And I think one of the most, and we'll get what you just said into way detail and earlier, but you really have figured out, and this is what I have too, right? I'm a brand guy, and when I first found crypto, I suck at trading. I'm really not interested in it, but I saw this is going to change the way you can build a company, right? This is game changer, blockchain and advent, and you feel the same way too, right? It's really a tool for empowerment. And what we're not talking about in the title here is just like, it's more than just another casino, which we've seen a lot of here. And our missions are to try to change this. So we deeply connected about this as well too. Oh, this is the most exciting part. Daniel is about to drop some alpha about a personal tidbit that not many of you know. So you said you had an idea. What is that exciting, just little icebreaker moment that you want to share with everybody?
I think you got to get personal for that. So as a fun fact, I grew up in a very unique environment where my mom's from Austria, my dad's from Belgium, I grew up in Spain, a whole bunch of different cultures together. And it took me around until I was 3 years old to speak, and people thought I had an issue. So it was very, very late until I said my first word. And then when I was 3 years old, apparently it all just came out in 4 languages in one go. So I've been very lucky, blessed with 5-6 languages at this point. But the early story for that, which is kind of an analogy for life as well, is that at first it seemed like the opposite. It seemed like the kid's got an issue, and he might not have come out all the way. And so it took me around 3 and something years until I was able to speak, which is roughly, for those of you who are not into parenting, it's roughly around, let's say, not twice as long as other kids, but it's significant amount longer than. And then after that, I just wouldn't shut up. So it really was a black and white kind of situation. But
dude, and what we're doing here, you already gave me exactly where we need to start, which was like you said, this was something that kind of traveled on in life too, right? Was you're like a late bloomer in sense. So that's going to be a great theme to even start with. But for us to get there, I want to make sure. I want to make sure that we ask the question so everybody has the context of what we're about to do. We're rapidly approaching 100 people watching. Please, I'm going to take this time, retweet, like, comment, do all the things. We are not abstract. We are on YouTube and we are on Twitter right now. And then this will be posted on our podcast platforms in the future. I hate doing this, but apparently we got to do this with humans. Retweet, like, comment, do all the things. I will integrate your comments as we talk. Daniel, again, one thing I didn't tell you, top right, the comments will pour in. Don't even worry about that. I will integrate any questions or comments naturally into our conversation. So with that being said, we're here, brother. The world famous MikeyG podcast question. My man How did you get to the seat you're sitting in today? Please give me chapter 1, 2, and 3. To reiterate for the audience that is listening now that has not ever seen this podcast, or the Spotify people and the Apple people, I'm talking to you too. Here's the format. Chapter 1 is Daniel's childhood. Daniel, to reiterate those kind of prompting questions, vivid memories. Like you said, I think we might just start with the late bloomer idea, or parental figures or their mantras: be kind, pay it forward, work hard, whatever that may be. Were you a tinker or did you play sports? What did that look like? Chapter 2 is going to be your schooling, your professional career, this little crypto journey. But here, remember, I'm really, really interested in your failures, because these lesson learns are fundamentally going to change somebody's life when they listen to this. I promise you that. I have proof of that. And that's ultimately why we're here on Life, I think. We're here to really shine your inner light. And I know you have a ton of it, because it's literally coming through your eyes off of 3 hours of sleep. And then chapter 3, brother, how you found crypto, like we were just talking about. What are you currently doing now, and what does the future look like? So let's start with chapter 1. Unless you have a real other like poignant, vivid memory. If not, we can just start kind of from this late bloomer kind of story philosophy here and go from there, man.
Absolutely. I think it's as good as a starting point as any other.
So let's hear it. So you are 3 years old and you decide to speak 4 languages all at once. Take us from there.
Well, obviously, I do not remember this myself. This was conveyed to me. I don't have the memories of when I was 3 years old. But
Totally cool. Remember, I also want to give you the context. We are reflecting right now. I'm not expecting you to like give me emotions of how you're going through this, but like looking back, what you've been told. Let's talk about that evolution. And if it helps as well too, is like any vivid memories, or we can just start off with what your parents helped you ingrained in you. Like when you look back, what is a part of your being? Mine, like for instance, my mom, man, she is just such a joy. She is so happy and she just wants everybody to win, to her detriment, honestly. And thank God a big proportion of my inside inherited that naturally. Like this was just for symbiosis, right? So any of those topics, let's start anywhere you want.
Yeah, with pleasure. I think if we try and relate it back to this late bloomer analogy, one thing that's always conveyed to me very strongly by both mum and dad is the importance to believe in yourself and do something and understand that you can be special, but at the same time, and critically so, don't have self-importance that could be to detriment. At the end of the day, you're just another dude like everybody else. And often I think what has held me back later on in life, and I feel like it happens to many people around, is you need to be able to look like a fool to achieve something great later on. And having that kind of, so in my case, I couldn't, people thought I had an issue. And then that was just because inside of little 3-year-old me, there was like 4 languages cogitating together. And that, or at least in my case, took time. When you take yourself too seriously, it applies to languages. For instance, I want to learn Italian, but I'm scared I'm going to sound stupid. People are going to judge me. That's probably, it happens professionally as well, whether it's imposter syndrome on your job, whether it's just general insecurities you carry towards, even partners, romantic relationships. Really applies to everything. I've been through a lot of these. It's critical to not take yourself seriously. And any degree of self-importance is probably what often makes you look the most stupid to begin with, ironically, because you're trying to preserve something, an image that you construct in your own mind, and a story of yourself that's simply not reflective of the reality. So if you can kind of break that delusion down, which in an ego-driven world happens a lot, for me, I found that to be a huge liberating factor and progressive factor. You can just be yourself. Dude, and don't be afraid of failures.
It's such a beautiful insight. Now, so here I'm interested in this because people find this so many different ways, but it seems like your parents were kind of giving that, reflecting back, obviously, your parents were kind of nudging you in this direction. If you look at kind of that narrative, what exactly was that? Are there like sayings or mantras that they had, or was it just kind of that constant support as you evolved and you did fail, making sure you had the freedom to to fail and learn and grow. What did that look like in your instance?
Yeah, so for me, it truly was the latter. Like many of the older generations, communications is not necessarily their forte. If you're a baby boomer, you were told not to necessarily speak your mind, always depending on what kind of culture you grew up with. But words are just words. What's more important is actions behind it. Certainly from both sides, the support has always been unquestioned. And I mean, they always voiced their opinions. They thought they would do something wrong. But if I really believed in something, just went for it and helped me. For instance, when I was 14, I had my very first company, which was a longboard company. I don't know if you remember they still exist. The long skateboards, the ones that you went downhill with, and like you reached 60 miles an hour on a crazy downhill. There was a phase of my life where I really loved it, and so with my best friends back then, we built our own longboards, and just actually probably sunk a decent amount of money in there that's never returned because we're just a bunch of kids. But it was fantastic, and they just always fostered that creativity but always told me to stay humble. And that kind of contrasting forces, the yin and yang, is always like, I believe that you can do something special, but don't think that you're better than everybody else. It's an amazingly powerful mental framework to keep in mind.
Dude, and you said one of the things, and I've had many people on this podcast, which is stay humble in the ego side, right? And so obviously you're learning this at a young age, but I think life takes over and ego, eventually you have to learn those lessons. Did you have that ego oh shit moment, or do you feel like you were just gradually prepared enough to not have a huge fall from ace when it came to ego? What did that look like for you? Because I'm interested in how your journey with ego was, knowing that you got these pieces of gold from your parents at such an early age.
I think as life wants it and teaching you lessons, I did have a few ego hits, absolutely. Less so professionally, but more on a personal level as well. Of you're trying to impress a girl, and you just know who you are. I think if we try to boil it down to the most simple way of saying this, it's actually the opposite of the classic saying that we've heard, at least growing up, is fake it till you make it. I couldn't believe less in it. The fake it till you make it, I think it just puts you in a world where you need to constantly be lying to yourself, to people around you, portraying something that you're not truly, and trying to distort reality in some skewed way that's ultimately manipulative. And when you start manipulating reality, you start losing a sense of truth. And if you don't operate in truth, you get yourself in a whole world of trouble. From one side, you start forgetting what you lied about, how you lied about it, and it just doesn't feel good. You can tell that your energy is off. You vibrate at a low vibration because you're just not connected with the truth that's around you, and you constantly try to make yourself see something. And I think that it makes us look quite despicable to people that can see through it, which are arguably the people that have a sense of intuition that you would impress. So it's a lose-lose situation, in my opinion. I had a few moments where I fell from good races. Again, mostly I never took myself too seriously on the job because I always understood that I know nothing. I know just enough to know that I know nothing.
Yes.
But on the personal side, I took a few nice blows to the face, but lessons learned.
And so, man, see what we do here? This is the stuff that matters. You're already dropping bombs like crazy, which is fantastic. And I love the reverse of fake it till you, because I totally believe it too. Like, as I've gotten older, you have to be your genuine, authentic self. And as we've talked about, I think we talked about a little bit in our intro call, and as people are going to find out very quickly, it is one of the only things we're going to have left. If you, and you've actually seen this resurgence in content creation, the awkward people on camera actually get shit tons of views because they're not what everyone is telling you to do. And people love the fact that they are fully authentic. My question to you, though, is there's not a lot of people that, again, have had a chance to get insight from their parents early on, then go through this. I love the advice. One of the things I think that content creations and podcasts and stuff like this in general also do a poor job is like practical insight. So like you talking about this, what would your advice to people that are struggling with it on literally what they should be thinking about, actions they might take? Do you have any thoughts there? And if not, it's totally cool.
Can you be more specific on what actions?
So like For ego, for me,
Ego.
what do you do? Do you repeat things every now and then and reflect on keeping your ego in check? Are there mantras that you have? Are there behaviors that you do to make sure to keep your ego at check? What are those practices in your mind? Or is it just a daily reminder that you literally maybe write down in a diary to say, hey, check the ego, be your genuine, authentic self, trying to help those people that might be struggling with it, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a dude that just goes with it. I have no such thing as a daily ritual where I force myself every morning to write something down. I think that can help at the beginning. The truth is, however long it takes for you, if you're lucky enough, like myself, and your parents did an amazing job on that front, you grew up with it, so you always knew it deep down. You didn't need to write it down. Sometimes you need life will remind you when you stray away from it. For those who struggle a lot with it acutely and need a reminder, to just stay quiet and listen to yourself and see what are the things that are irrationally bothering me. Like if you try and close your eyes and be like, okay, this situation really bothered me, and then you try and make abstraction of that and be like, okay, if I remove myself enough from myself and look at this situation from a third, like from a God's eye view kind of thing, from eagle's eye view, and look down on all the situation. What about it specifically, that what this person said, how this interaction went down, what this failure professionally, like I got rejected on the job, for instance. What about getting rejected to that job offer actually pissed me off? And if you can't consolidate the rational side of, for instance, well, it pissed me off because a rational reason would be, this was my last application I had going out there, and it was literally my dream job for the right reasons, and I spent 6 months doing it, and it's just bothersome that it failed. In that case, I can consolidate and be like, okay, that's pretty a decent reason to be bummed out about it. If, for instance, however, you come out of it is like, that effer from across the table that interviewed me, it was just so rude to me. Like, how dare you ask me this question? Like, I just didn't express myself correctly. And then you ask yourself, well, was he actually, or like, is that just an interpretation of yourself, or like, were you just reflecting your energy in that other person? And if often you can't fully make sense of why you're upset about something, not always, but 9 times out of time, it's your ego playing, having the upper hand on yourself. So just look at the ego always comes out. Life always tries to tell you lessons about when you take yourself too seriously, when you're upset, as most things. Like something goes wrong and you're just irrationally upset about it. Ironically, my mom gets irrationally upset about many things, which is, do as she says, not as she does. But there's truth in what she said. So I think that's a good mental framework. Just have a try and get better at your inner intuition of what bothers you and what's the reason behind it. The why is always the most important thing. And once you start getting good at that, it will help you with a whole array of different things as well. Listening to yourself is
beautiful. And you said so many other more, just opt out so many more questions. One of the things that I heard you say that I think is really important, and I would love your take on it, and then reflecting back on how this thought evolved in your mind. But you said it right away. And it's something that I think about all the time. This podcast, for instance, most top tier podcasters, they have a whole team that will predefine canned questions and make sure that they're going down this like almost curated route to kind of have the same process the whole time. Where I take the opposite. Obviously, I'm going to read about you as a person and understand your project, but I am intentionally not taking the regular path, because what just happened is just purely organic and authentic. And I think that's part of my shtick, right? But for me to get there, dude, I've been doing this for 5 years. I was horrific in the beginning, right? And I got better. And your point that you said with the ego too is you want it. And I think it's anything in life. And I love your thoughts on this. You need to do it so much that it's just an inherent part of you. And you said that, and you had a leg up because your parents taught you at a very early age, but you still had to struggle with it. But when it's just your natural reaction, you're close to that. It's that mastery idea, right? There's a great book by Robert Greene called Mastery about you've done it so many times, it's just inherent to your being. What are your thoughts on that process? And is this a theme that you've seen as you've grown and evolved over time?
Absolutely. For the question of mastery, I skimmed through that book like years ago. I can't remember what he said. Well, but the typical thing you hear about mastery is you gotta do 10,000 hours, right, to become a master. You gotta practice the guitar 10,000 hours to be a master at guitar. A counter quote to that is Naval, who says, "It's not 10,000 hours, it's not time put in, but 10,000 iterations rather. How many times do you test and fail, test and fail, test and fail?"
Yep.
The
Yep.
quicker the iteration cycle can be, it's the difference between knowledge and experience, right? So as much as my mom could have told me this from the first day on, it happens to be that as humans, we need to go through that experience to really internalize that moment. So you can write it down as a mantra as many times as you want, and that's great. It's probably a good starting point. But unless you apply it and you feel it and you experience it and you fail and then you do it again, you won't fully get to the point where it becomes part of your person, which is a very hard thing to do, especially as you grow older. As a kid, it's pretty easier, but as you grow older, it's hard to change something fundamentally. But for that, I think the only key lever is just to test and fail, and to become a master at anything, you just gotta probably, I don't know if 10,000 is the right number, it's arbitrary, but you gotta just go through many iterations. And so it comes back to the ego, because going through many iterations implies by definition that you're gonna fail many times. If you succeed from the first time, you might, optimize, but it doesn't, you probably won't need 10,000 successes to make it in life. Usually people go away with one, two big successes in your life, and that's it. So 10,000 iteration or 10,000 hours by definition implies constant failure, which also implies constant breakdown of any ego that you might have. Because if you still have an ego left after 10,000 hours, you're just a masochist by that point. And that's a whole different kind of, opening a whole different spectrum there.
You might have to have a deeper conversation with yourself at that point.
Exactly.
And the 10,000 number, I think that's just a marketing branding play, right? To be honest, because what you're saying here is again, what we're pretty aligned on. And it's the way I can describe it is do it until it feels like a part of your being. And that doing is failure in the process. But what you've radiated, and what's cool about your story is, as you continue to tell it, people are going to be able to relate from you compared to my story growing up on the East Coast of America, now living in Southern California, doing different things. It's going to enable them to say, hey, this guy, at the end of the day, what Daniel did is he just did something, and he continued to do it, and he continued to do it. Because at the end of the day, me and you can say till we're blue in the face, dude, you just got to go do something. But until someone resonates with them, that's not going to happen. So that was your way of doing it. One thing that I want to touch on, and we can start evolving kind of into like high school and starting getting to the college and beyond, is I want to flip now more into what piqued your interest as you're little and you're starting to grow up, you're starting to experience things. Thinking things creative. You've got sports, you've got music, you've got art, you've got all of these beautiful things that you're starting to experience. What is young Daniel getting excited about?
Yeah, that's a really broad, interesting question. I'll try and narrow it down, but for some reason, which is really arbitrary, I mean, I have some hypothesis for it, but I just always had a huge spark within me of like an internal fire, so to speak, about just creating. So this entrepreneurial trip was really the only thing that always got me excited, and probably to a fault as well at one point. But I played sports and I had side interests and I partied and all of that stuff. But really, if you look at it from a life's mission perspective, I don't know what it is yet, but for me, it involves very much the act of creation, which I guess is something very similar for you because that's the position you're in. And so whether, I did longboards when I was 14 years old, I had a couple more startups after that. Entrepreneurship was just a perfect outlet for that. Then more philosophically speaking, I was always very adamant about the idea of having enough personal freedom to centralized assets, such as Bitcoin, but could have been any other. And so combine those things and then eventually end up where I am today. But there's always been a big spark in me, and that kind of manifests itself in just creating more or less random projects, but that I always deeply cared about.
So I'm sure you know where I'm going with this. Of course, I'm interested in the philosophical side of things here. And so your environment growing up, whether it's parents or your influences, were they driven by entrepreneurship? Is that where you think this spark came from, or reflecting? Because I also think there's something to be said about everyone has a superpower and it's inherent core to who you are as you're born. What are your takes on that concept?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you gotta believe it for yourself. At the end of the day, whether it's true or not, I do think it's true, by the way, but it doesn't really matter. You're here for a reason, and that's not to say you are. It's not to add on back to the ego and self-important thing, but your spirit, your soul is here for a reason, and that the reason could be to love someone else, it could be to help a community, it could be to create. But there's something in this life that you will produce that will make it just somewhat better for someone else, something else in this life that needs your help.
Yeah.
So
thinking about your creative spark.
Yes, in that sense.
That it's like inherent in you, or do you think it was more of a product of environment? Because we haven't really talked about what your parents did. Were they entrepreneurs, or did you have influences at that young of an age?
It's always a combination of both, right? So you always have, I think you have something inherent. You can't force something that's not naturally coming to you. And for me, I always had that inherent fire. That's one thing that I know is an absolute truth. My parents weren't necessarily entrepreneurial. My dad had a business, but it was like a big startup. He was just doing his thing. He was in tourism. We grew up in Spain, in Mallorca, which is a beautiful island. If you haven't been, there's also another part where I think what was deeper side of me is that I have a funny background in the family where my dad comes from a pretty well-off family, some like old European aristocracy kind of thing. That family's been around for like 1,000 years, and my mom comes from strictly nothing. Yeah. So I've had both contrasts put in my face early on, and moreover, the European kind of old aristocracy, what happens in 99% of the cases, unless you're literally the king of a country, is that it's a falling empire in front of your eyes, because essentially these were families that 200-300 years ago were given arbitrarily lands, possessions, buildings, castles, whatever it might have been. And since the shift of these countries now going from strict monarchies to democracies, parliamentary democracies to parliamentary monarchies, those rights, those entitlements got stripped away, which philosophically is a righteous thing, because again, there's no need for you to be entitled. It's self-detrimental if you're entitled in that sense. But what's funny about it is that you have now this new class in Europe. That's the easiest way to call them is the new poor people. So you have the old money and new money. This is the new poor, where it's families that come from historically speaking power and wealth in Europe, and is a falling from the grace. And this is something that truly I've been lucky enough to not having to suffer in any great way. But if you compare even what my granddad tells me about his childhood and his great granddad, like what this was like 200-300 years ago to now, it's really like a falling empire. And something in me always drove me like a fire. I mean, like, how sad is it to just keep falling down? Like, there's no need to be entitled to anything, but like, it's a nice motivation I think it's kind of a chip on my shoulder to be like, I'd like to break the cycle of just of having a family that constantly speaks about the good old days and kind of, and at the same time I have my mother that comes from nothing. So I don't know, there's a lot to unpack there, I guess, if we're doing a session, but somewhere in there I find in me creative, be like, okay, I want to create something for myself that really matters to me, that will impact the world, and will kind of position upwards trajectory rather than just downwards. And that's just not necessarily financially, it's in all senses of the word. Most importantly with oneself, like, are you fulfilling your purpose? Which in many of the cases of these families, they're strictly not, because they're all just sulking, and sulking and rumination is the opposite of getting there.
By the way, I have been called a therapy session by founders. Now, I don't want to get the deepest, darkest season therapy, but you bring up a fascinating topic, and you have a really interesting insight that not many people have, which is you hear about the good old days, You have this one half that just came from a very different life than that your mother did, right? And so the question that I have is, when breaking down these two, now, even though they're falling from grace, right, there are still, I don't know. I think what I'm trying to get at is there's disadvantages to both. Coming from money, having the things that you want, expecting life a little bit on easy mode, or coming from nothing, it's a little bit harder. Would you prefer one or over the other? Are there different things to be learned between these two types of lifestyles? I'm just really fascinated by this, on where that grit comes from, you know?
Yeah. There's definitely lessons to be learned on each side. I think the easy one, if you come from a place of, okay, you're not the poor, you started with something in life and some kind of head start, compared to, let's say, any person that lives in a third world country. There's the one thing you got to learn is, don't be an a-hole. Stay humble, exactly what we said before, because truly you've earned strictly nothing of it. And even more so, I think you have almost not more to prove to yourself, but you have certainly a huge amount of deal to prove to yourself that you can be a person that can empathize with the reality of the situation around you, and understand that you come from a privileged position, and find still that purpose of yours that doesn't have to be about making money at all. It can be anything. You can become a monk in the Tibet if you want to, but having that necessarily motivation and discipline to find that insight. I would always prefer the idea of coming. I think the story of my mother is.
You cut out there on me. You cut out on there. I heard you always would prefer, and then it cut out.
Gotcha. I would always prefer the idea of. So I have, for instance, had a conversation with my dad years ago, and because he was just thinking about his inheritance and how that would work, etc. And at the same time, there's this whole thing about billionaires coming on live TV saying, "I'm not going to leave anything to my kids."
Right.
And as weird as that may sound like on a family level, and maybe this is a naive position for me who hasn't got kids yet, so take that with a pinch of salt. By no means am I saying that I have ultimate knowledge on this.
But again, let's get the context for everybody that's watching. These are take advice from Daniel. This is all about thoughts and provoking thought on people. So go for it, man.
Absolutely. Everything I say, take with a pinch of salt, as you should with anybody else. But hopefully it can spark something as we speak in someone else, as you say. I think each person has two sides to themselves, a masculine and a feminine side. You have a masculine and feminine side. I have a masculine and feminine side. Yep. The feminine side is one that mostly redirects yourself towards your love part, your life of love, your family, your kids, your partner. That's usually the feminine expression of desire. The masculine one is really that one that kind of goes, you close your eyes and you can't sleep at night because something burns inside your head. You need to write something down, whether it's a song that you thought about, whether it's a podcast that you're going to produce, or whether it's a business idea. And that's some guiding line that tells you this is where your life destiny, your purpose, so to speak, on life is going. The biggest disadvantage, I think, from people that have a sense of entitlement about themselves is that they lose sight of that. And it's probably the biggest joy in life to have it, because it is coming back to what we said a couple of minutes ago, is you just fulfill whatever you're meant to do on this world. And it could just be, and that means they go to your way, it could be you need to bring love and share love in the world. That's the most noble thing possible. But it could also be something more pragmatic, and like, you can shape the world in this direction, or you can help your community in this way. If you're entitled and you think life should be sent on easy mode, there's a fair chance not ask yourself those questions. And not having that fire inside you is I think a great shame. It makes you feel so alive, and there's so much joy and lessons and experience and wisdom to be gained from that. So there's lessons to be learned on both sides, but having that grit is a privilege. And so never feel sorry for yourself, whatever your situation is. Always be grateful that you have it. That fire is great. It's great.
Dude, do you guys understand what's happening? Like, Dude, we could talk for a long time. Like we've barely scratched the surface and we're already 40 minutes in, which
That's
is
crazy.
wild to think about, right? I love doing this, man. I love doing what we're doing right now. We are going to start getting on to chapter 2 because I want to be cognizant of time as well, too. You haven't slept much. Rapidly approaching 200 people watching. Dude, we have covered these golden bombs already, which is talking about ego, which is talking about entitlement and coming from nothing. And what are you going to do with that? The opposite of don't fake it till you make it. What a beautiful insight, man. Like people need to hear this stuff more. Retweet, comment, like, do all the things. We're going to start evolving into chapter 2 here, people. And that is, so let's kind of just start, like I said, evolving. And I think we have a good link, which is you have this burning desire to create. And at the young age of 14, you're already being an entrepreneur with a longboard company. Kind of take me from there. Did you even go down the college route, or you just said entrepreneurship is it for me? And let's evolve kind of the life story from there, and we'll get into some of the insights.
Got you. So I did go to college. I had to interrupt college because in Austria, where I was born, we still have a mandatory army. So at 18, every single boy just gets conscripted, and in you go. You can actually choose to do it after your university. Which I had already chosen, but back in 2015, there happened to be one of the big migration crises. You know, the war in Syria was happening, and so a lot of migrants were coming from Syria, from different parts of the Middle East into Europe, and they needed reinforcement on the border security. And so they called a bunch of guys in. I was amongst that batch, and so I went to the University of Nottingham in England to study math, essentially, econometrics, applied economics in different ways, and I was really struggling the first semester anyway, because I was just distracted with things that an 18-year-old boy might be distracted with.
Right.
And so in some way then midterm, I got called in to do my service. I got lucky, I got out after 6 months. It can go up to 9 months normally. And so I could start the second year again. And the second year was much more focused. I was in my lane. I started college a little bit. I realized that most of the lectures were completely ridiculous and had no real value application. And so I did what the only thing I can do, which was I created a new company, registered in England, and it had to do with, which is very different to what I'm doing now. It was called Imaginary, and it had to do with real estate branding. So at that time, we were just selling a house back home, and I was also looking for student accommodation. And the whole idea of floor planning, energy certificates, video photography, all of that was completely, you had freelancers coming in, we're doing the thing. It was expensive because they're one person at 24 hours a day. It was just very inefficient process, took forever. So by simply applying a division of labor, you have some people that just take photos, you have some people that just edit them, you have some people who just take the floor plans, people that make them happen. But just having a very small team, but just more specialized, like basic econ one-on-one kind of thing, like improve productivity by specializing tasks. We actually blew out any competition in England, and we actually did really well. We had some major clients from hotel chains to the university itself to a lot of real estate agencies. And essentially through that, from year 2, I financed kind of my college myself from that point, which again was my granddad was paying my first year of college. And from year 2, I didn't like how that felt with me. So I had the urge to create something, and it worked really well, thankfully. So that I was in a very lucky position from there. And that also meant that my grades did suffer because I was now much more focused on something else. And so I did the bare minimum to get by, and I graduated. No, it was no worries, but I was so glad I was done. And I never really considered doing a master's or an MBA or anything like this because I just fundamentally don't believe.
So really quick question on this kind of first success that you have, right? And you're at a younger age at this time, and reflecting back, what is it? Is it the typical product market fit? You had a good idea, you had a right target market, right time, luck, people say. What was that too? Because it's actually different, be that young and have something successful like that. What do you think it was for you in that moment in time?
I think it's the simplest first principle when it comes to business, which is, are you solving a problem that actually matters? And luckily enough, I was the person that was bothered by the problem at the moment. It was very inefficient to find the right house. We were 8 dudes trying to look for accommodation in England for a student house, and it was impossible. It took forever. And I saw the flaws and like how it was presented and where the things that we were going to. I was very acutely feeling the pain. and I just decided to do something about it. If usually, again, exceptions confirm the rule, but a golden rule typically is if you start something because you see the issue so blaringly in your eyes and you're like, okay, how has no one done this yet? Or how is this the state of the market? Or this the state of this industry? And you can see a path, you can see the solution in your mind, you can visualize it and be like, okay, this is what it could look like. Then it's just a process of backwards engineering it. You visualize, and this actually applies to any kind of business metric, is what is the North Star that you're aiming to achieve? And then step by step, go backwards and try and find the single smallest next step you can do to make that happen. And have that sequence of events very clear in your mind. It doesn't have to be rigid. It doesn't mean that you won't change and pivot. You always will. But having a North Star and having a continuous backwards engineering flow, how to get there, it's probably the simplest way of achieving something. And in our case, it's very, very simple. The inefficiencies were so glaring when it came to that market. It's just a bunch of really freelance dudes doing the thing, and it's great, but there's the inefficiencies of it were just great, and so we could outcompete everybody on price, time, and quality in a nutshell. So, and then it was just simple, rational.
And so this moment in time, biggest lesson learned, reflecting back, because again, now you're still young, you're seeing some success, but there's obviously missteps, and you're obviously course correcting. What are you coming out of this moment with? Like, oh man, this is impactful.
Fear. I think abstracting yourself from fear, which again plays back into ego, because when it comes to entrepreneurship, the main reason you're fearful of is, if I fail, what does that mean for me, my image, my future? And that always comes from a place of fear, and fear is very powerful, but extremely detrimental, because it's not danger, right? It's two very separate things. Like you can be fearful about something that is not dangerous, and ironically, the Will Smith kind of thing, where you're most fearful about jumping off a plane the night before when you are in your bed thinking about it, and you can't fall asleep at 2 a.m. because in 12 hours you're gonna jump off a plane. At that moment in bed, there's no reason to be fearful. Yet you are. And then ironically, once you're actually jumping out the plane, which is the most dangerous part of the whole experience, you actually feel liberated and you're not fearful at all. The first time I did it, I put a lot of brakes into my own. I shot my foot a few times in not doing things because I was fearful of the risk taken. And just yesterday, I was listening to Eno, which is a guy from Sanctum. If you guys are a bit familiar with Solana, we had Super Team Japan, which is a different t-shirt, but this Solana conference in Tokyo. And he's a great dude. He's growing his account. He's like a chief vibes officer at a major company called Sanctum, and he's just one of the most keen, like KOLs, we'll just said at the beginning, influencers in crypto. He's a great dude. And it's like, listen, the number one thing I learned was no one gives a F about what you say, when you said it, how you said it. The only thing that people remember is how you made them feel, which comes a lot to what you are saying and your whole podcast is about. My point about this is, don't be fearful, just go for it. You have one shot, one life. If you fail, it is never the end of the world. There's always a redemption arc, and if you failed, you're probably meant to fail because there was a lesson for you to be learned in there. So embrace it fully. Whatever you do, just do it 100%, and don't hold yourself back arbitrarily because you think, again, your ego might get hurt or fragmented. It is such a breaker for people in this world. So that was a big lesson for me. It could have gone even bigger, better if I had a bit more maturity about it, and then just put brakes on myself.
Another beautiful insight. That's just so good. I love this concept of fear. It's really, really good. Again, I have to follow up with fear. I have a couple thoughts. I'll give my thoughts after about how you deal with this fear. There's a couple books that I think are critical. 4 Agreements, Power Now. Those are really good when it comes to this concept of fear, being in the moment. But for you, and again, reflecting up till now, and maybe even habits or things that you use as you approach this fear, what do you do? How do you deal with it?
For that, I do have a mantra, and it's exactly the one just the one I said before. Is fear, danger and fear are separate things. Constantly remind yourself, what are you actually afraid of something that's dangerous or something that you construct in your own mind? That helps a lot. And then again, it's just internalizing it. I have not done things because of fear. I've done things wrongly because of fear. clouded my judgment because of fear. It's a very powerful tool that works against you. I mean, it's designed for protecting you from predators in savannah, right? You're supposed to, like, if you're a little antelope or a human or a monkey a couple of years ago, you want to be fearful of a potential lion lurking a couple meters away from you. It doesn't mean the lion's there. So understand where it comes from, and don't be angry at it, but understand that you're no longer in the jungle, and the lion is not just about to jump on you. Most likely that lion is in your own mind, and it eats you from the inside. So just being conscious of that and living through it a few times, life is so much more freeing, and you'll be such a better expression of yourself and everything you put out in the world if you stop being fearful of yourself, of the things you do. And one of the big reasons people are fearful, I think, in this modern world, where a lot of importance is placed on the self, is, again, the first principle we spoke about, which is the degree of self-importance and ego you have. If you don't do something because you think you might look stupid, then that's a very bad reason not to do it.
Yeah. And I say this a lot over time. And for me, you know, my example is obviously living in America. I like to describe it as rock, flag, and eagle and independence, right? Like, this is what we care about living here. And the best thing I've done in my life is sold my expensive house in the Bay Area and moved in with my in-laws to help them out during retirement, and then have a full-time daycare and really get that core family unit just vibing and growing together. And in America, that is a very taboo thing to do. Like, what are you doing? Why did you live into them? But again, it goes back to this fear of, what are people going to think about? And it's amazing to me the rest of the world applies this principle, because it's like, why would you make your life harder for this independence mantra if you can do more things in it? And since then, man, it's given me the flexibility. Again, the books, The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. It's definitely a lot about spirituality and stuff too, but the whole point, and exactly what you said, and I hope people, you know, go get that book if you're a reader, but really deeply understand what Daniel's saying, which is this, is most fear contrived is exactly that. It's contrived in the mind of something that hasn't even happened yet. And most likely that thing is probably not going to happen. And so you have to be really self-aware of this and just continue to work on it. And no surprise to me, somebody like yourself that has been successful, built businesses over time, and is now trying to tackle Web3, which is one of the hardest places to build a business. You're doing it with this concept in mind. I think it's probably, in my biggest unlock, and probably the last year, the biggest unlock for me is this concept of fear. Is there anyone that's top dog for you other than ego and fear? Are those kind of the two top ones that come to mind when it comes about persevering, doing hard work over a long period of time, or the roadblocks that you've experienced yourself?
When it comes about doing hard things for a long time, fear might be something that deters you from it. So you just got to be aware of it, but it's not what's going to drive you to do it, right? The reason why you do it, I mean, it's in that saying, it's the reason why you would do it, that the why is the most important thing. Whenever you start something, do take the time to understand why you're doing it. It should be crystal clear in your mind what is that drives you, because that's going to be the only thing that separates you from still being here 10,000 iterations later to come back to the initial model and actually succeeding, to having failed, to giving up after the second one. If the why is clear to you and it really matters to you, something speaks to your heart, then you're probably going to, you know, and you kind of can realign it with your life's purpose. And it's just, when you talk about spirituality, like one of the key, an easy, like a less woo word of saying it, I think it's very approachable, I think, to most people who haven't started this journey, is just the one of inner work. And the inner work is just understanding some key core principles about you. And it always starts with why. So if you relate it back to entrepreneurship, understand why you're doing it and have that internalize it to a degree that it's obvious to you. And whenever there's a moment of doubt, that why will translate as a fire that comes back in you. And, you know, you might be down for a moment, you might cry in your girlfriend's arms or wife's arms or partner's arms and be like, I'm no good for anything. But then you realize that soon after, once those tears fade, that inner why, which is the fire, it's the source of the fire, kind of the wood, the logs that kind of keep it burning, that will come back and you'll just keep going. But it always starts with why. And same thing with marketing. But if if you're marketing a product or a service, don't say what it is. No one cares what it is. Say why it exists.
Yeah, 100%, man. And I think it's really interesting to me because I feel insanely fortunate that I get to talk to, my podcast only deals with amazing founders like yourself, and they're most of the people, not all, there's been very successful people on this podcast that don't understand this concept. But I will say a majority of the people that understand this concept, hold on real quick.
No worries. That's the cool family unit at work.
Yes, that is. My little man just woke up. Oh man, now I lost my thought. What was I saying?
Most founders that come in this podcast.
Oh yeah. So what's cool about this is the most founders, and you said it here first, you do the internal work. And again, this comes in many forms of fashion. Dude, I wasn't until my late 30s, and I went through almost dying to force myself to have the conversation of who the hell am I and what am I here for? Some people get that very early on, but I had that. And that is step one in my mind. Do you agree with that? Do you have a different take on that?
No, I can agree more.
Yeah. And so, again, Daniel and I are saying this, urging you, just start having that conversation, because really, I think the truly powerful things happen, like you said, which is if you do find that, the why, right? Your why, and then can align it to how you really think you can impact the world, unbelievable, magical things happen. And it's interesting when I talk to people like yourself or other people with a similar mindset, what really happens, which I think is interesting, and I'm assuming you're going to say yes to this, or maybe you have something to add, is then the equation turns to not if I will be successful, it's, well, when is it going to happen? Because I know everything else that I'm doing is aligned. What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, and I'd also say it's how you're going to get successful, because the if you replace it with the how, because there's a ton, your why is not narrowed down to one thing. So for instance, if we made the practical example and we relate it to what I do right now and why I started this company, Nomu, which we can speak about later. It's not really about Nomu, it's just understanding the why. I feel that there's a big burning hole in me that gets really upset when I look at the state of. I got orange pilled into crypto because of the fundamentals that it represents of giving ownership back to the people and liberating them, empowering them in ways that no other technology previously in a capitalistic society could do. And you look at where the state of crypto is today, and you see a bunch of meme coins rugging people and insiders just taking advantage of retail. And that dissonance really bugs me. And so that created a fire. And so my why is, why is crypto not doing what it was meant to do? And why is it creating more injustice, more predatory behavior, rather than actually creating something pluralistic and favorable, holistically speaking, for the world? And then now that can apply to a whole bunch of different ways. So my mission is now driven towards, I really believe in this underlying technology. I love it. Something in me just resonates profoundly. Why is it failing at doing its job? And what can be my piece in this to come back to reorientating its course in history to something that I believe in. And so I chose to do Nomu. I could have chosen to do a bunch of different things, but that why with me is very clear. I want to fight the injustice of having people left out of the digital economy, of also being oppressed by arbitrary rules and third parties that tell them what they can't do with the hard-earned money. All the things I really care about, and I want to unlock a layer of that, and I'll be a small speck, a small grain of sand in that story, and that it's very powerful. And so whatever happens, that kind of, however you articulate it, but that core belief is with me, and so it keeps waking me up at night, and it keeps working on what we do right now, which is Nomu.
Yeah, and I think what you layered on to what I said, which is what I've come to realize too, and I think this is the early part of the entrepreneurship journey, is especially when you start and you finally have clicked of obviously. So my mission is to bring back the lost art of genuine human connection as we get more connected. I think what we're doing right now is just going to become more and more critically important. It's already happening, but I thought about this 6 years ago, right? And now AI is just making this even more prevalent. And it hasn't even really happened to the Web3 space. It's happening a little bit, but I've been there since day one. And what I'm getting to is I was firmly convinced in the beginning this was going to be a hot success. And it took time. And it's also come in the form of like strategy companies and doing business development for other people trying to find like-minded people. So it not necessarily was the podcast. It's already came on 4 to 5 different beasts. But the persistence of the time with that belief of the why and knowing that it's going to happen eventually led me to these other aha moments. Does that make sense to you? Do you have anything else to lead on or layer onto that?
So you know Kevin from When Shift Happens?
Yes.
Right. He's done extraordinarily well. So we know him personally. I mean, he worked with Swissbook very closely, and we're one of his early sponsors. And his realizations are exactly the same as you have. So he's done obviously extremely well at getting people on the show and asking the right questions, and also creating some degree of human connection that is genuine, is not found elsewhere on surface level podcasts, which, as you said, is in the time of AI where content gets commoditized. The only thing that's left is real human connection. So I couldn't agree more with that. But his success is a big part of just being that third leg of the triangle of connecting two people together that need to be connected. And that unlocked so much from him, from sponsorships to long-term deals. I know he's got some big offers on the tables to kind of do like a long-term commitment on his podcast with, I'm pretty sure I can't name the brand, but one of the biggest brands in Web3. And it's just him connecting people, and at the end he found success in a way that's slightly different than what he initially expected. He thought like, okay, I'm just going to create a ton of views, go viral, which to some extent he did, but that virality was a secondary effect from actually just connecting people and doing the right BD, which is funny because again, his why was, okay, I want to spread love and do human connections. His how ended up being BD, then the content, rather than content first, then BD. And he's done very, very well at that, and I have no doubts that you get there as well. You already are, of course.
I think a lot of my success comes from closed doors and stuff that I don't talk about, which is interesting, right? Because I think this is the kind of the little dirty little secret for content creators in the whole, is everyone thinks they make money off these massive sponsorships and all these views, and it's like, nah, that's very, very small percentage of people that are making like gobs of money every month because of that. It's everything else that you do. I always say, by far, the best thing I've done in the last 4 years is have hundreds of conversations with people like yourself. And it's opened up doors that I just couldn't even fathom or imagine. Networking is truly one of those keys to life. Let me ask you this before we go on to Web3. Any other thoughts in this kind of professional entrepreneurship career, and people that are interested in maybe in kind of more transitioning to Web3 of leveling up, and in essence of starting this journey that we're talking about, the self-exploration? Any other tips or thoughts that you, just over your experience or advice, that you would give to them on things to think about, things to start doing? Or is it really just back to what we start about, is release the ego, start having a conversation about your inner self? Is it as simple as that, or do you have any other thoughts going through all of the failures, all of the things that you've learned up till Nomu?
So that's a big question.
It's a massive question. This is what I like to do. And if it's too big, how about you just give me one more thing? So we've talked about ego, and we've talked about having the conversation with your inner self. Give me one more thing that you think has been a real big unlock for you as you've learned over time.
Surround yourself with the right people, and don't be afraid to ask. There's the saying of ask and you shall receive. It couldn't be more true. You gotta ask. It always ties back to ego. The only reason you wouldn't ask is because, again, you think you'd look like a fool if you ask, or you think you'll be in debt to someone, ask. Don't be afraid to look forward to them and ask for advice. I've been in my professional career incredibly lucky to actually have a mentor. I always thought I'd never get one because I was like 25, 26 years old, and it was like, you got to get a mentor, and I never found that person. And then out of the failure of the European Central Bank, again, because I was trying to do something that was profoundly not aligned with how they saw the future of the digital euro, I kind of went under the Web3 side, which is the counterparty, the fiat traditional finance system, and then Web3 kind of has the counter voice to that. And so I wrote a really awkward email to my now mentor and old boss and friend, which is Anthony, the founder of Swissbook, co-founder of Swissbook. And it was like a very boyish email. It was like, hey man, I'm a big fan. I saw all your videos, all the content. I love what you did with Swissbook, classic, like really fan email kind of thing. And it's like, hey, this is my experience. I saw that you've got this position open. I'd love to kind of apply at Swissbook. I say this nonchalantly now, but I thought about this email for like 2 days. And it took me 2 days to pre-write it. And it's the only application I did. It was a good application. Like the email was very awkward, it was a good application. And so I bypassed HR and just looked for all the possible derivatives of the email that he could have, the professional email. So I knew it was swissbook.com. And then it would be either Anthony dot his last name or just Anthony or Anto or whatever it is. Right. And eventually I found the right one. Then it went through to him, and he never checks his emails because I know him now for 5 years, and he rarely does. But he checked that email, he answered. And through that, he then, like 2 conversations later, I got a job offer at Swissbook, where I became the senior PM, and we did some great things together. But at the beginning, I applied as a junior PM, and they actually thought I was an intern, as a funny moment. My whole point is like, well, first of all, thinking that you were an intern could either be seen as, your ego could take a hit on that.
Yeah.
But more importantly, then the next 4 years was just an incredible learning curve by his side. Not only him, but also Cyrus, who's the CEO, and so Bastian, and so many other great people at Swissbook that I learned a lot of things of. And I just got really good at asking them questions and not being afraid of how that might be perceived, and not asking them because thinking I was going to sound stupid if I asked them. And the learning curve was just incredible. And when you get feedback as well, there's 2 ways you can take feedback. You can either take it as feedback and thinking, oh, this person is just telling me down. What does he know? Or what does she know? Arrogant little piece of, something. Or again, you can try and take a step back and be like, okay, what is that person actually telling me? And even if I don't agree with it, there's probably some kernel of truth in everything, any feedback that's been taken to you. Be very arrogant to think that feedback that you receive is false. It never is. There's always some truth to it. So be very good at receiving feedback, be very good at asking questions and surround yourself with the right people. And do not let, again, ego get in the way of that. If they say you do a good job, don't run away from it. Lean into it even more and do whatever it takes to find the right person. If it takes time, that's fine. It's like finding a partner for life. Some people don't get married until they much later in life. It's fine. But if you want that to happen in your life, you will find that person. You just got to be open to letting that person into your life, and people want to help you. It's a very, that's what charity exists as a concept. There's an innate quality in most human beings that there is a great amount of gratitude and well-being that's being generated from you helping others. So it is natural that this mentor kind of apprentice relationship exists in human nature because it is in our human nature. So if you want that person to exist in your life, it will happen. Just be open to it.
Yeah, and that's so I think a little bit because I'm asking for a friend, maybe me. I've never had that, and I'm now I just turned 44, and I've always wanted that, and I've asked plenty of people. I just don't think the right time or the right place. I mean, I guess the advice that you would give anybody in this situation is just to keep on trying. Is there anything else here?
I think if it hasn't happened for you, there's probably a bunch of reasons. You can probably kind of do retrospection and be like, when in my earlier years, was I ready to have a mentor myself internally? Was I in a position to actually have?
I absolutely was not, right? So I think that's probably only running like 4 years on ready to have one, right?
Exactly. So I mean, that's rookie numbers, Mike. You get it for sure. Yeah. I think the truth is, I'd like to think that's true. I obviously have no proof of it, but the person that will become your mentor, but it could be, it's just a name, but there's no point getting bogged down on that. But the person that will show you a path we'll show you the path that needs to be shown. Maybe you didn't need a mentor when it came to entrepreneurship. Maybe, for you, the path was clear enough for you to get going to where you are right now without that help. Maybe your mentorship will come in the shape of spirituality, it could be anything. So maybe when you're 75 years old, that person will finally come and be like, and show you the light to great enlightenment.
But I'm glad you said that, because I think, again, we put these time frames on, like, I just turned 44 and I have a 2-year-old, came way later on life, right? And there's advantage or disadvantage to these things, but it's always possible. It really is always possible. And shutting yourself off to thinking because you're a certain age or in a certain position it won't happen is just, I think, a bad point of view. Let's do this, man. We are an hour and 11 minutes in. I told you we're going to talk a lot about yourself. But we got to get to Nomu. Sorry. I don't know why I said Nomu. We got to get to Nomu. Like I said,
how would you pronounce the Nobu restaurant? That's really famous.
Nobu.
The sushi restaurant. Nobu.
Yeah. So in America, you pronounce Nobu, Nobu.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess then, it's Nomu as well in America.
Nomu. Yeah. It would not be Nam. The reason why I said Namu is because Nam is a term, right? Noms. Food stuff, right? So sometimes I think I just Freudian slip there. I was thinking about food, I guess. Yes.
A slogan is we all gonna eat well. So
yes, exactly. And I had to you threw that acronym at me yesterday, and then I had to go down the research, because I'm a boomer, bro. I'm 44 and I'm on the internet. This is my detriment of being a quote unquote content creator. I just thought, I can't play the game, man. I refuse to play the game, and I will do my consistent posting. But when it comes to replying all damn day and being in the know about what means what, I'm horrible at that. And I've made myself comfortable with doing that.
I promise you're also not missing out on anything.
I know I'm not. I was I'm actually going to tweet about this week. The most ironic part about all of this, I hate, despise social media. I hate it with all of my heart. I think not many things positive come from it, and especially where we're coming from, which is just going to be so much regurgitated content of the same thing. I love the podcast because we have really cool conversations like this, but the rest of it, I can't stand it, and I have to be on this damn thing.
It's a necessary evil for sure. I agree with you.
If
I could, I don't have Instagram. I don't have any of those things. I just have Twitter because I have to. There's obviously some great things that come from it. The ability to, it's the most direct to community or direct to customer communication channel that's ever been created. It's fantastic because you as a CEO, as a founder, so it has that, but there's a lot of downfalls, and you can get, I don't know if that's the right way of saying it, but mentally farmed very easily by Twitter, by whatever you're getting pushed in your face, will inevitably dictate how you see the world and how. It's a lot of noise. It's a lot of slop. A lot of
noise. Yeah, listen, you're coming from a guy that went to design school, ran brand marketing with a company that had a budget in the multi-billions of dollars a company. This shit's been a part of my whole life, and I couldn't not like most of it more than with all my passion. But there are beautiful things about it, and why I'm here is what we're getting to, which is the Web3, right? One of the fundamental things we both agree on is so much more can be done in this space. It is unbelievable to me that I've been doing this for 5 years, found this over 6 years ago, and how little we have come when it comes to, we move so fast, things are changing so fast. Yeah, maybe the tech on the back end is changing, but the ethos of the things that I deal on a day-to-day basis with, I was talking about this with another founder earlier on today. The just pure lack of accountability and responsibility of the people that you deal with in this space is phenomenal. Just not showing up to a meeting on time, Mike, or just the amount of times I've been ghosted and not even a DM saying hey bro, I'm really sorry. They never talk to me again. And it's bro, if you did this in any other industry, you would be just skewered. So let's talk about that. Anything how you found Web3. You said you got into crypto back when you were in the kind of the banking world. Anything you want to touch on there, or do we want to start just kind of reiterating the why with Nomu?
I mean, we can have a very quick segue on crypto to Nomu by the means of crypto, like holistically speaking. As a super quick backstory, came into crypto for the same reason 99% of people came to crypto, greed, and then stayed for the same reason that most people stayed, which is the philosophy behind. At one point, you have some friend, I guess this is the typical user journey in crypto. You have some friend, family, YouTube video, TikTok, whatever, depending how old you are and what environment you're in, that told you can get rich very quickly with the thing, and you're okay, I'll put some bucks in it. You see the balance move a lot up and down, and yeah, okay, wow, there's something happening here. And then you inevitably get wrecked because you have no idea. And then then it forces you to ask yourself the right question: is, do you actually believe in this? Is there something happening here, or was it literally just a greedy little kids and lesson learned, and I move on and to something different of my life? There's no right answer here, but in my case, it was very clear that I was reading. I mean, the Bitcoin Standard. If anybody is in crypto and hasn't read the Bitcoin Standard, I do think it's the starting point ultimately, because it touches upon the lowest common denominator of crypto, which is money, capital, and why it exists and its history, and therefore a decent approximation of what a future or possible futures could look like. So Bitcoin Standard is fantastic. If there's one book I recommend today, it's an absolute no-brainer. It's that.
Sorry, say that again. I didn't hear what you said.
So when did I cut off?
What book again?
The Bitcoin Standard.
Oh yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, it's just the most obvious one, but like especially with the new generation, people that come in for the first cycle, second cycle, the book came out in 2020, something like this, if I'm mistaken. So back then it was a big thing, but the people that come in now, it's very easy to skip it and go straight into meme coins, for instance, and you are a shell of understanding if you just do that. It's a very easy book to read. It's just storytelling. Take a couple of days of your life to really understand it. Cool. When it comes to a high-level picture of crypto, as I said, you and I agree on is that it could be so much more than it is today. And if you look at the current state of crypto, I think it's actually at a breaking point where it's been around for let's say 10 years. Ethereum ICO was in 2014, so that's 11 years now. And if you fast forward 11 years, we are essentially still at a state of hyper speculation. We have minusculely improved from ICOs, which was just the first iteration of that.
Right.
But meme coins are just the exact same thing. And even like modern platforms of like token launches, it's just a meme coin in a suit, 99% of the cases. So there's a lot to be desired in an industry that has so much potential to change the general living standards of humans across the world by just giving them complete freedom of access to capital, and us restricting it to the most degenerative form of it a decade in. So the truth is, if we do this for another decade, I just don't think the industry would exist. Yes, you'll have stable coins. Yes, you'll have a bunch of things on the institutional side. Bitcoin will exist as a safe haven, which I do think that's what it will become. But everything else, I'll just go to. And you'll have meme coins. You'll have meme coins that literally just industry that's designed to be casino. The same with the casino industry is today. But the bigger industry, the whole idea of like what the first 10 years of it were about, which is this utility tokens of like ability to get in early, accumulate capital into a vision, a project, and then benefit from it. We've done a very poor job at that. And if you don't increase that whole industry, which today is the big chunk of the industry, will die, and you will be left with something that's a shame. So it's a very critical time for crypto to evolve from its current state. And even right now, the bull market is raging and Bitcoin is doing a thing. The reason why, your tokens are down tremendously against Bitcoin, anyway speaking, compared to 4 years ago. But the reason they're not in the plumbers is just because liquidity trickles down from Bitcoin. But it's a very poor state of the industry. It's a bull market that is truly quite sad, to be honest, if you think about it, and try to dissect what's happening.
It's insanely sad because the same shit is still being regurgitated in a bull market.
Mm-hmm.
What did we do?
And it always gets amplified in bull market, right? Like that's when greed is the highest. But it's a shame because it really hasn't evolved. If you look at the fundamentals that drove a bull market, let's say in 2017, which was ICOs, Bitcoin, then ICOs, it's right. Then it became Bitcoin and DeFi summer in 2021. So utility tokens that were in DeFi, the emergent that, and now it's Bitcoin and essentially meme coins or meme coins in a suit. Like if you launch like stuff on Believe, just
Right.
Nothing against that platform, but like that's just one that's on Solana that's big right now. So essentially, if you look, okay, we're now essentially 7 years later, 8 years later from ICOs, and we have evolved very little from there. And then meanwhile, during that whole period, you've had the whole low float, high FDV meta where exchanges would just dump on your face because there were distribution engines in this industry. So essentially, you got rugged for the last 7 years. As a retail investor, and we have not been able to build anything. If you're still today in crypto after 3 cycles, it's because you have some above average degree of risk management intuitively. I don't think that retail people have a express risk management strategy that they understand to do. It's just intuitively you understand that you probably should hold on to those Bitcoins. You should stack sats. You shouldn't just ape all your capital into meme coin that's hot right now on the timeline. You have that sense of intuition, which is great. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't be here. But essentially, it's been an uphill battle for retail investors for 7 years. There's so many ways to get rugged. I think I got rugged thankfully not my whole capital, but I got rugged a bunch of times. I lost a bunch of money with Celsius. I lost a bunch of money with different, a whole bunch of different things. So anyway, it's time to make it evolve. And I just want to hopefully be able to have a little impact on that and issue a new meta and just be a great little grain of sand of that. But we can talk about it.
No, I love it. So let's do it then. So your why is obviously part of it evolving, but let's go with Nomu's 2-minute or less elevator pitch and your why. Would love to hear that. And we'll talk a little bit about what's going on, and then we'll talk a little bit about the future, and then we'll be close to winding this bad boy down.
Let's do it, man. So Nomu elevator pitch, it's Kickstarter on chain in 30 seconds. You Kickstarter, if you ever participated, you pre-bought a product and you waited for a month to receive it. It's shut up itself if you receive it. If not, you got a refund. And then because you waited for a month and you're an early backer, you got like a thank you note or you got a t-shirt, something, a gimmicky reward. Really what you wanted is have skin in the game. What you did is not buy product. You financed its production. You invested in that product. It would only be logical that you get a counterparty and some skin in the game in the upside of that product. If the product does really well and you were the one that enabled that first MVP, that first iteration to happen, it makes sense that you benefit from the future success of that product, because that's the point of crowdsourcing. Crowdsourcing is the only industry today in capital where there's no investor rights. If a VC gives you money, they expect equity or tokens, whatever it is. If an angel gives you money, the same thing. If you happen to be the average Joe and you give a project money, you are expected to get 0 in return. That's kind of the state. And so when we looked at Nomu, we're like, okay, what Web3 for once actually enables us as technology to be able to give that and give ownership back to people on the smallest possible level, which is at the retail level. You pre-buy product, you help finance the production, and then when sales come in later, you actually get a part of that revenue share. So you essentially elevate yourself from being consumer to a co-owner of a product. And for the companies, it's amazing because instead of just having a client base, they now have an ambassador base, people that win with them and therefore incentivized to evangelize about the product and kind of grow it's a direct go-to consumer marketing strategy by having just ambassadors. It's an embedded referral program that's super powerful because you essentially have skin in the game, the upside of the product. The reason why, when we go back to what is Web3 in a nutshell, it's ownership, right? Web2 is Web1 is read the web. Web2 was read and write the web, like social media. What we're doing right now, we're writing on the web, producing this podcast. Web3 is read, write, and own. So if we wanted to apply this ownership level on, we went, okay, what's the lowest common denominator that we can make a difference here in? And we looked at capital in one of 3 ways. You can either accrue capital by labor, you can accrue capital by creating content, code, what we're doing right now, or you can just accrue capital by compounding capital that you have yourself. And so if we look at what the capital, like the last part, the accruing capital, which seems the most affordable, like the most widely spread way of actually accumulating capital is you already have capital. Right. And obviously there's a big discrepancy. Some people have a lot of capital, some people have very little capital. But one thing that everybody has is enough capital to buy groceries It's your discretionary spending, your shopping is the lowest form of capital that most people in the world have. And if not, you really are severely under the poverty line.
Right.
You will have some degree of money to spend on basic goods and needs, food, clothing, essentially shopping. And so our idea was, what if we can turn shopping, your discretionary spending, into your next form of working capital? And that how you tie it back to Kickstarter. We say, what if you could turn your shopping into ownership in the products you buy? Yeah. And so that's what we want to do with Nomu. The vision is that today e-commerce is this crazy world where you get fed an infinity of ads that kind of push you to one-click checkout pages that all go in this quick dopamine cycle. It's all designed for you to feel a quick dopamine hit when you buy it, forget about it, and repeat the cycle as quickly as possible. It's a very unconscious, mindless way of spending money and just being this like retail therapy, which is complete nonsense. What we're saying is that tomorrow, through the use of Web3, we can actually change the way we consume by not focusing on the dopamine coming from price or from like some quick action, but actually from the value that you can create in the future. And so my vision, the big vision that I want to work towards, like this North Star metric that we spoke about at the beginning, is say that today people go on Amazon, on Temu, and all these platforms to look for price. What is the cheapest price I can find for a product? And tomorrow they'll come on Nomu to look at what's the best upside I can get for a product. What is the product that I believe in that can actually give me some ownership that I can help come to reality? And by that, I transform my capital into some realization of reality in the future. If you and I, we all buy this AirPod case because we like it, we think it's amazing, then there's a reality that this AirPod case will happen. It's like Shark Tank on a consumer level. Yeah. And so we can get a revenue share back from this AirPod case. That's, I think, a much more noble way of looking at capital. It would also get rid of a lot of the wasteful spending, because we no longer spend for the dopamine hit of having, we're spending for the dopamine hit of producing value into the future. And so it skews a lot the way you spend your in from a wasteful way right now to something that's productive in the future. So that's Nomu in a nutshell. The Kickstarter on-chain and the why is to transform basic consumption into ownership of future products. And again, if you tie it back to AI, it's going to be increasingly important because you can actually build passive revenue from buying the right products and believing in the right products. And then, you become a Shark Tank at the Mikey and Danny level of just, I really love this product. Let me buy it, help these people out, and I get a revenue share back from it. And that's, I think, a much more beautiful vision of consumption.
Dude, beautiful vision. I absolutely love the vision. And I think we touched on this in our intro call, but I want to touch on it again, which is everyone takes advantages of beautiful and novel, great ideas like this, right? And so there is obviously a vetting process and a consumer protection process. It needs to be instilled in the sense that not any Joe Schmo can pitch their product and not even have the expertise of building a company, because like you even said, building those AirPod cases in a legit company that has all of the things that we talked about, your why, your brand, your mission, that's a lot of work. So what are you doing to solve that problem?
Yeah, that's a very good question. That kind of gets my product brain going, because essentially the solution to that is always UX. You need to find the right UX. So there's a bunch of things you could do. For instance, what we do at the very beginning is that, to keep it very simple, we vet personally all the companies that we work with just until we get operations up to scale. But at the beginning, we work right now with a roughly a dozen of companies that we're going to go to market with. They're all big Web3 companies. You've got Sanctum, you've got Swissbook, obviously, Expo, any big names in the industry. The idea, obviously, because it being Web3, we want to decentralize it at one point. And with that comes a lot of risk, as you mentioned. But as with everything in life, you can find an elegant solution usually in product with UX. And so there's a bunch of things you can do. The first thing is, obviously, you can have two categories of products, the vetted ones and the not vetted ones. The vetted ones are people that have KYB'd. So we know who they are, the business exists. We've spoken to them. There's some initial, essentially the blue check mark of Twitter. Yeah. This is a verified account. That's one way of doing it. The second one, it's very simple, is obviously past actions. Why do you trust your Uber driver? Because you see how many stars they have. That is the one thing that Uber manages to do, and that makes you get into the car into the car with a stranger. Is you can see that this person has a 4.9 review times 300 times in the past. You're like, okay, this person is legit. So if you have done things in the past that have worked out, then we can find a way to give you a score that can accredit you of being this person is trustworthy. Contrarily, if something went wrong, you can slash your score. So UX wise, you can, without needing to impose and you being kind of the arbitrary decision maker upon all things, because I do want to be able to decentralize this in the future. The same way that Kickstarter, anybody can create a Kickstarter. If you're starting out from nothing and you have none of these things, you don't have a business, you don't have the credentials, at the end of the day, the only people you're going to raise money from is your personal network.
Yeah.
That's how it starts. We're just going to facilitate the ability for you to do that. It's going to be facilitate the ability for you to have an idea, create a product, and then very easily, without having to worry about all the accounting or the give out revenue share to the people that backed you early on. That's going to be embedded in the platform. And then obviously there's going to be failures. That's fine. But we're going to make sure that we have the right UX for users to come in and be like, okay, these are the safe deals. These are the ones that are verified. These are the ones that have amazing past track history. And these are the new ones. These are the really high risk ones. And if I don't know the person, I probably should not invest in it. So, it's all a question of UX, and it's a very great problem to solve. There's different ways of doing it, but.
No, I love it. And I think that's an eloquent answer. The only other question that I would have is being clear that the ratings are from, because it's one thing for an Uber driver to get a rating because they can do hundreds of drives in a week. You can't create hundreds of companies in a short amount of time. So the rating is going to be coming from past experience as well, outside of the platform, is my assumption.
Yes, absolutely. You could very easily aggregate an AI kind of platform where you have, in even on-chain data, there's a lot of data to be learned on-chain. So I learn that. So there's a lot of very interesting ways you can do it. And it's not necessarily even about building multiple companies in a very short time, but you can certainly, as a company, launch multiple products and batches of products. So, yes. And so with that, maybe the first one, we can have a base score of being like, this person, we know this much about them based on their on-chain data, but are both being correlated. AI goes, okay, this is roughly trustworthy. But realistically, if it's the first time, you're probably going to raise a small amount from your friends and family. And we're just going to facilitate that transaction to happen. And then if you deliver what you promised on, and it's a small batch, and it took you 3 months to do so, then the next time you're going to have that past history baked into the platform. And it could just be a first iteration of this and the thing. And then, because any of the revenue share is based on the batch of the product rather than just the company holistically, because what you are buying is a product.
Gotcha.
And so in that case, you can iterate. You can go back to this idea of 10,000 iterations. Obviously, never 10,000 because that'd be a ridiculous number in this context. But you can iterate very fast and have multiple iterations a year and build yourself up in credibility. And I think it's a meritocratic way of doing it.
Awesome. Love it. No, that's fantastic. So I know you've got a ton going on. We're over an hour and a half. I want to be cognizant of the time. I got to go too, because I got to pay attention to my little one.
Nothing more important than that.
3 to 6 months. I'll ask one question and I'll give you my final thoughts and we'll call it a day, brother. So what does the next 3 to 6 months for your company look like? The most enticing and exciting 3 to 6 months possible. We are today, actually, as we're recording this, a couple of hours, we're launching our first asset, which is an NFT collection that entitles. The idea of it is to have our early community members, which we have an amazing base of, to get skin in the game in Nomu itself. And so we give them a perpetual revenue share on all the in-house products that we will create, whether from subscription models like an Amazon Prime, if you go back to that analogy, to point of sale devices. It could be a whole bunch of things. After that, we are launching the platform officially with the first go-to-market, the first 12 companies that we have already signed. And then it's just a matter of scaling that. It's a proof of concept. We've done it in the past with the sushi company, but now we're doing it online for everybody. And it's going to be a heck of a ride. It's all to be made. If you like philosophically what we try to do, it is probably the single best moment to come in because you're extremely early. Everything is yet to be done, but we have enough of a foundation to know that this is real and that there's real momentum, there's real traction. We've, from simple things like we've won a bunch of demo days and hackathons and stuff like this.
to just the sheer community and partnerships that we have, that something is happening.
Yeah.
And it's all coming to we're now finalizing the product, we're finalizing all the first steps to have an MVP ready, and it's all happening in the next probably 3 months rather than 6. It's a very, very exciting time to come, and it's your moment also to get some skin in the game. If you desire to do so, obviously, if not, you can just come and check it out. But if you like philosophically what we do, it's an amazing time to come by. Know and check out what we do.
Fantastic, man. So I always ask kind of this kind of wrap up closing question, and it's a very simple question. If someone were to ask you what it was like to be on the MikeyG podcast today, how would you describe that compared to the other things that you did?
I'd say serene. It's nice to take your time. You're a great listener. It's a great way to touch upon things that are not obvious to touch upon. It's great to not just talk about the project, because I've done this elevator pitch in different ways, shape, or forms for too many times.
Thousands.
And the truth is that, as we said at the beginning, no one cares about what it is. At the end of the day, the best sales conversion funnel that you're going to have is, do people just get a good feeling about you, and do they like what they hear, and who you are as a person, as a founder. Founder-led marketing is inevitably, for better or for worse, I have mixed feelings about founder-led marketing, because it's very ego-driven again. But anyway, it is clearly the way to go for. It's the simple human nature of, we've always trusted humans. That's what we understand best, because that's what we are to begin with ourselves. And so it's great to be able to speak. It's great to be able to have a human conversation, and not just a Y Combinator pitch for the podcast. So that's clearly a USP that you bring forward, and that's all just a reflection of your energy that you bring into space. So I appreciate you a lot for that, and thank you for having me.
Absolutely, man. And you gave me chills, because that's exactly what I'm going for. And if I deliver the feeling that you just got, I've done my job here today. And when I really do reflect on, I mean, dude, you dropped so many, and again, I'll reiterate this, your juxtaposition about coming from something or not coming from another thing, or coming from something and coming from nothing, ego, all of these insights that you had on, and dude, one of my favorites is the opposite of don't fake it till you make it. You did exactly what I told you we were going to do today, which is you shared knowledge about how to level up and how to start changing your mindset. And it came from you. And someone's going to hear that beautiful accent coming from that beautiful face and be like, hey, man, just because he's so attractive, I'm going to give this a shot today. I mean, that's one of many ways they're going to come and do this, right? And so I'll tell you this, man, you made a difference today, and that's all we're going to need to do. I felt by far, which is cool, and you had this. Like I said, I've had a lot of people on this space. Dude, the light, you got the light. It's coming through your eyes, man. You're tired as hell. You've got 3 hours of sleep going on. You're about to launch your NFT. The light, the energy, and the passion that you still brought, that's something special. And I'm just going to leave it at that. You have it, man. And I am so thankful that we just got to build our friendship. Like I said online, we just took 1 hour and 38 minutes. I look at you as a new friend, and I cannot wait to continue grow and learn and fail together, man. So thank you so much for your time. I can't even believe that you gave me this time, and it means the world to me, brother.
Right back at you. I appreciate it a lot. They say, both the teacher and the pupil can only be as good as the other person is to them. The teacher can only be as good as his pupil, and the pupil only good as teacher. So it's always a symbiotic relationship, and everything you said, I threw it right back at you. Thank you so much for allowing the space and the energy to happen here. And it's
absolutely, and we're going to keep it on. Dude, we're going to cut the shit out of this podcast. It's going to be fantastic, and you're going to have ungodly amazing marketing for the next 3 months to come. And we're going to keep on doing that. We're doing you some service. And with that being said, MikeyG and my man Daniel are out.